and they had a shark in there and all this other stuff. And they'd have to have somebody like a diver come in to like scrub the inside of the aquarium
with a shark in it.
With a shark in it, yeah. I mean, not like a man-eating shark.
Or excuse me, Johnny tells it as Kris comes out of the helicopter with a tape of his recordings and a beer in his hand, and it's like, "All right, Johnny, here you go." You are listening to Tape Spaghetti, a podcast about the twisted and tangled innards of the music industry. Some of this content may not be for all listeners or viewers, so if it's not for you, no harm, no foul. We'll just catch you on the next one. All right, without further ado, let's get into it. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to Tape Spaghetti. I am Scott Marquardt and joined, as always, by the inevitable Blake Weiland.
And I am inevitable.
It was inevitable or ineffable?
I was going to say inevitable sounds like a supervillain from it does a little bit. Inevitable.
I like that.
It sounds like something Thanos said at some point.
Well, I have something to share. I had a mysterious gift appear in the mail.
You did?
Yes. I don't know from who. So I told a few people about our last episode that we taped, talking about Nirvana and In Utero and Steve Albini. And I'm not sure who or why, but a gift appeared in the mail, which I will stand up so that you can see.
Oh, whoa. Oh, wow. For the listeners, I'm looking at a Oakland Raiders themed Steve Albini t-shirt.
Yes, you are.
Wow. I can tell you publicly and truly that it was not from me.
Well,
so
the mystery shall remain.
Yeah. However, I am also wearing a gift from a less mysterious friend, you, on top of my head right now, which showed up during the middle of our last recording.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, for continuity's sake, you wanted to wait to put it on.
I did. I almost wore it, and I was like, that's going to be weird, because we did split in the middle of that one.
That we
listeners.
did.
We don't usually do that, but we had to for a couple different reasons, and I went and grabbed this hat off my
Blake
porch.
and I are getting older, and as occurs to older men, sometimes nature calls when it calls.
That's right. And you don't have a choice.
Nope.
Yep.
But yes, I'm quite pleased with this shirt. I found Electrical Audio, like Steve Albini's studio, is selling these little beauties for $40. We should get a Tape Spaghetti code. This is not me product pushing, but I probably could. I'm leaving money on the table here.
What are we doing?
I wanted to ask. So you showed me this last night or the night before, but you're wearing a watch that I didn't know about.
Oh, yeah. I think we talked about it briefly. Maybe it was off the episode or maybe it was on. But yeah, I guess to get into it, because it is actually tied into our last episode.
That's why I ask.
Yeah. It's a Tom Peterson wristwatch. Tom Peterson was a very well-known, but only in the Portland metro area, pitchman, retailer, furniture salesman, whatever. He ran commercials from like the 70s when he got started, clear up into the early 2000s on a very regular basis. And he was known for selling furniture, of course. So that's what he did. Basically, if you go in your living room and look around, he sold all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. Entertainment centers, lamps, the whole 9 yards. And he had this flat top haircut. He would give free haircuts in the store. So you could get, but only flat tops. So you had to get a flat top haircut if you went there and got a free haircut. And then he had merch like this watch. This is the like white face version. And I think it's actually the ladies size, though it's rather large for a woman's watch.
I'm going to be honest. Like I was assuming that's like a 40 millimeter watch and that's just what it looks like on your wrist. I've got these dainty little wrists over here.
My wrists are not that big. I don't have big joints. My dad has these just big, thick joints, and I'm kind of jealous. I wish I had those. It'd be good for my other lifting activities I like to do. But no, it's like a woman-sized watch. It's barely on, as you can see. But I wanted to keep it original, and it did fit, so I went with it. But Kurt Cobain was famous for wearing, well, he was famous for other reasons. He wasn't famous for wearing the watch, obviously, but he famously wore it in different press photos and everything, except his was the black dial.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah. So I want to get the black dial larger size, but because Kurt Cobain wore it, I love Kurt Cobain, but he's not why I want the watch. I want the watch because of Portland Tom Peterson, like cult legacy. That's what I want it for. But Kurt Cobain has made the watch very expensive.
Yes, I bet. I had not known about Tom Peterson
for like 700 and something bucks, which isn't that expensive in the watch world.
No. You can spend a lot more than that on a watch, believe me.
But they're just cheap watches. So it's like, you don't really want to spend that kind of money on something that probably won't last forever, especially being from the like late 80s. Yeah. So I'll find one. Because I live in Portland, I'm hoping one day I will come upon one, and it won't be $700.
Oh, so, yeah. If you thrift store enough, I'm sure they're around. I love this Tom Peterson character. I feel that every town has like one or many of these types of guys. It's kind of always like, to be honest, I think that I would be pretty good at being that guy. I'd be more than happy to be in a bunch of hokey commercials selling whatever. We were at an event the other night, and you weren't there. I'm sorry. I keep thinking that you're at every guitar event that I'm at. But I was talking to some of the guys at Premier Guitar, and I was like, "Oh, I'm from Indianapolis," and they're like, "Oh, I used to play gigs up there." They're like, "I could never get over." We have this RV salesman, named Tom Raper.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, his name's Tom Raper, and he leaned into it. Like the commercials always sounded like Tom Raper RVs.
Wow, that's well, it's memorable.
It is memorable. I remember it now. He brought it up, and he was like, "Oh, he should have changed his name," and I was like, "Should he have?" Because we are all like, you just like happened through the town, and you know where to get an RV in town.
Yeah, and you're probably going to go there, even if you're like, well, that's an unfortunate name. Oh, well, he says he's got the deals.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You need a windowless cargo van fully tricked out in the back. Tom Raper's got you, baby.
Yeah, he's got
lots of creature comforts not everyone would think to put in there.
That's right. He's an expert.
Got hooks for your rope and all sorts of variety.
Yeah, cargo tie downs, they call them. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Extra cargo tie downs in this van.
No.
Yeah, this Ford Econoline is not only fully decked out, but we, instead of just ordering a windowless version, we just painted them with latex house paint.
Ooh, I like that. What have I done? Can we stop this episode and restart the episode and go just undo the last 15 minutes and start clean?
We could probably just segue quickly.
I was going to say, yeah, in lieu of going back, let's just charge forward.
Yeah, let's charge forward into something that has actually literally nothing to do with any of that at all.
Good. Fantastic.
Yeah. So it's great. Today, I wanted to talk about somebody that I greatly admire, and I think is kind of universally loved, as far as I'm aware. A very well-known songwriter, actor, musician, just seemingly a fantastic dude overall, from what I can gather. Mr. Kris Kristofferson. The
late Kris Kristofferson. He just passed a couple months ago, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it was 2023 or 2024.
Was it?
Time flies. Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't that long ago.
Hard to keep track of time anymore.
It was fairly recent, and he was in his 80s. He lived a good life, as we're going to get into. So while I'm saddened that he is no longer with us, I can pretty confidently say he had a pretty good run at it. So it's not the worst thing in the world. But I'm also very glad to have been alive while Kris was here with us. I think he did a lot of cool things. And that's actually what I want to focus on mainly is we're going to get into some of his musical accomplishments and stuff, but we're going to focus a lot on his early life and some of the things that he did outside of music, especially in the early days, because everybody knows him as a member of the Highwaymen. Yep. But how he got there, not normal.
Really?
Not normal at all.
I don't know much about his past. Just a few little factoids here and there. So I'm excited to learn.
You're going to like it. like it's one of those stories that you can't help but be like, yeah, this guy's the man.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. So in his early life, he was born June 22nd in 1936 in Brownsville, Texas. He was the oldest of 3 children, and he grew up in a very strict military family. So his dad was a Army Air Corps pilot who rose to a major general. So he like got up there pretty far. I get really now for all of our military listeners, I get really dicey when I start thinking about which ranks are where in the different, branches of the military.
Because I know about like there's a major, that's a thing, I think, and then a general. I don't know what the combination of those two means.
And then there's like a captain in the Army and a captain in the Navy are 2 different things.
Oh,
like Navy's actually
a Navy captain is
rank.
a captain of a boat, right? And an admiral
That's my understanding.
Captain of the captains.
Yeah. So like a captain in the Army is not, they like, there's like,
it's the captain of a unit. Is that right?
I think so. But I think the captain of the Navy is actually a higher rank. So when they're like, yeah, it gets
different to run a boat versus a unit. Granted, our apologies to the servicemen and women that are listening, because you're probably like, no,
no. So just pulling their hair out, like, stop talking, stop. So we won't talk about that too much. Although the military plays into this quite a lot, relative to most musicians we would be talking about. But this meant that his family moved a lot. As you can imagine, military brats are famous for bouncing around the country all the time. Eventually got to California, where Kris graduated high school in 1954. Despite the constant, like, just on the road, going all over the place, and I would have a hard time with that lifestyle, to be honest.
Me too. Especially growing up, I went to the same school, like K through 12, and never had to. New people came in and out and stuff, but I never had to like start over. Moving just kind of on the whims of the American military, I guess, would be difficult. Suddenly it's your senior year and you're somewhere else. Yikes.
Yeah. I mean, for reference with my life context here, why I think that would be so challenging for me. I lived in the same house until I was 19, and then I got big, strong, and independent and
moved into your wife's house.
I managed to acquire my own place 1.5 miles away, and and I've been there ever since. So yeah, not a guy who likes to move.
I've moved exactly once. I was in Indianapolis until I was 19, and then I've been in Nashville ever since.
Except
I thought I would move a lot more than that.
You moved like 4 or 5 times while you were in Nashville, though. I didn't even do
4
that.
4 or 5? No, gosh. I moved basically every year for a number of years. I probably lived in like a dozen different places.
That's what I'm saying. I'm just like, nope, right here.
Yeah.
Right here. And I hope to move like one more time. That's all I want to do. That's all I have in me.
Now that I bought my first house in COVID and then like moved to another one like two-ish years later. Now I've been in my current house for 3 odd years, and I'm restless, man. I'm not used to being in the same place. I'm like, I want things to be different, but I like where I'm at.
I remember when it was just recently, you had some pretty serious home repairs you had to do, and you were like, I didn't have to do any of this at my other places because I only lived in them for a year.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I want to get in and I want to get out before there's anything I have to do to the thing. Now there's like an endless list of this stuff.
There is an endless list. That is what they refer to. And our fathers probably have said multiple times to both of us, the joys of home ownership.
Yes, I've heard about the joys of ownership. I don't want the joys of home ownership, I don't think.
Too late. You should have thought about that sooner.
Now that I do, I don't mean like I want to lose my house. But I regularly fantasize about like renting and just having someone else to call.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be nice. I've never experienced that, but that's all right. I'm not complaining. As I said, I like the permanence that I've experienced in my life.
It's nice in the sense that like you can get something else fixed and it's not your problem, but it will always be fixed in the cheapest and shoddiest manner possible.
Yes,
always,
and slowest.
And so it's sometimes slowest. It depends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I guess that's true. If it's an emergency, they'll take care of it. But if it's a squeaky door, you're going to be dealing with that for a while.
Every landlord seems to have like a guy, like a Hank, who's just like a a handyman, not quite a good enough handyman to like be a handyman that works with like end users who are going to inspect his work, but who can like get by on everything. He's like the Danny DeVito in the Matilda, where he puts like just enough sawdust in the engine to keep the engine running. Hank can do that to anything. He can just kick the can down the road by a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, see, what a lot of people don't know, if you just stuff it with wire, it'll be all right for a while.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I guess in that case, Hank's not wrong.
But speaking of Hanks, Kris Kristofferson.
Who's not a Hank,
who's not a Hank, but I'm sure he knew some Hanks.
Yeah.
You're not born in 1936 and you don't know a few Hanks.
I feel like we're besmirching the good name of Hank while we did a whole episode on Hank Williams. Go back.
I'm not besmirching.
Oh, you're complimenting.
Knowing how to fix every problem just enough is its own particular skill.
Oh, that is true, actually. I do appreciate that.
It's a whole different skill to be like, I can like build a beautiful bathroom, like from soup to nuts. Whole different skill to just be able to get anything kind of back to working.
Now that you say that, I kind of fit in that category. Yep. All right, moving on swiftly. So all that to say is Kris did wonderfully. I mean, I don't know how he was feeling about it, but he excelled. He did great academically. He did great in the sports realm. Some people kind of called him like a quote unquote Renaissance jock. He could kind of do everything. You know, he was great with literature. He was great in the English class. And like, I think he even got, he got mentioned in Sports Illustrated for his achievements in football and track.
Whoa.
So
he seems like a guy who like would be like, oh, it's an old football injury. And you're like, yeah, I believe that.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into that too. So he performed so well. He got a Rhodes Scholarship to Oxford.
He's a Rhodes Scholar. Wow.
Yeah. Yep. Which for me, I'm like, that sounds fancy, but I don't know what that means. So I had to look into that. I've actually known that about Kris for my whole life. Mm-hmm. And that's probably the context in which the idea of a Rhodes Scholar got introduced to me. But I didn't know.
There's only like 25 or so a year.
For the people like me who aren't educated, the Rhodes Scholarship is an international postgraduate award for students to study at the University of Oxford in the UK. It's open to everyone all over the world, but again, it's like 30, something like that.
Yeah.
It's very, very limited and very competitive, as you can imagine, because that is one of the most prestigious schools in the world. So he got there and he earned a master's in English literature and he boxed competitively. Again, we're getting into other things that he does. He earned an Oxford Blue, which again, I didn't know what that meant because I barely got out of high school. It's the highest honor. It's the highest honor bestowed on college athletes at that school and at Cambridge. The Blue is like, you're the best in this category. So he was the best boxer at Oxford.
God, what a badass.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So then people would see him doing this, like, oh, he just beat the crap out of that guy. And then he would go into English and like go over the works of Shakespeare as a soft, gentle soul. It was like he really kind of had it all. I imagine, I don't know this, he probably cleaned up with the ladies.
I was just thinking, I want to marry this man. I'm like, this guy sounds great. I want him all for myself.
Yeah. He's great. So
what could you want more than that?
I seriously. So by 1960, he's got his degree, and it seemed to everybody that he was gonna be a success in some form or fashion. But he actually did something quite a bit different. So he went into the army, which is kind of the family tradition with his family. Pretty much everybody goes into the army, and he dove straight in. And just to make him even cooler, as if he's not already the biggest stud you've ever heard of, he completed a ranger school.
Whoa.
Yeah. So he's like a borderline professional boxer, a Rhodes Scholar, and an Army Ranger. Yeah.
I assumed he was like ROTC and like going in as like, what do you call it?
I don't know.
No, like those. There's like enlisted men, and then there's like officers. Oh my.
Oh,
gosh.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm not sure which.
It's earlier than we usually tape this episode, so Blake and I are
not sure what rank he got to. Oh no, I do have it in here. So he completed the Ranger Assessment Selection Program. It's an 8-week course, and it's everything you can imagine. It's not quite like Navy SEAL level, like Hell Week type stuff, but it's one of the most difficult trainings experiences in the U.S. Army. It's extremely challenging. They're, getting dunked in water and decreased sleep and nutrition. They got to, do a 5-mile run in 40 minutes or less, parachuting, combat drill, the whole 9 yards. It's a very, very intense experience. And he kind of slayed it. And by 65, he had risen to, again, we're getting into this dangerous territory here. He had risen to a captain in the U.S. Army. So he's a captain in the Ranger Corps.
If this is like early to mid 60s, was he like deployed in Korea or Vietnam or anything?
So it doesn't appear that he actually went over and saw combat necessarily, from what I can tell. It's a little bit, there's kind of differing things here. Some people are like, Kris Kristofferson killed a bunch of people, and like maybe he did. Again, like, because the Rangers are people you send into situations that you don't talk about. You send in the Army Rangers, you send in the Navy SEALs, you send in the Marines, and those are the ones that you don't necessarily know what. Yeah, so who knows happened. Exactly? Yeah, exactly. But in 65, so we're yada-yadaing over a lot of that. That's a 5-year gap of military experience that he's going through right now. But he was offered a teaching post at West Point. There we go. Yep.
I see how you mix those up now.
Yeah. But he decided he didn't want to do it. And this is a big deal. This is a huge thing.
Yeah. So I imagine it's fairly prestigious to teach it at West Point.
I think that is a very solid. I mean, for his family, that's one of the best things that could have ever happened. Right. And he decides he doesn't want to. He resigned his commission, decided, I'm going to pursue music. So
which at this point, you've got a Rhodes Scholar who's an Army, he could do anything. Even the West Point gig, might be kind of lower on the pole of what Rhodes Scholars have done. He could set out to cure cancer or something.
Exactly. Yeah. He
decides to go pursue music, which he could have done way before any of that.
Yeah. He didn't have to do. Yeah. I've been told before, you don't got to do all that. I'm like, so yeah, he moves to Nashville in 1965. He's like, see you later, West Point. See you later, Army. See you later, college. I'm moving to Nashville, where I'm going to become a janitor. Yes. Let me take a swig and get this gravel out of my voice real quick.
No, you're fine. I mean, the idea of meeting a janitor and him being like, oh, I was a Rhodes Scholar, is bonkers.
Yeah, he became a janitor with a specific goal, though. He knew that he could become a janitor in these studios.
You want to be a head janitor?
Yes. One day I will rise to the top janitor in this local high school, of which there are 2. So.
Hey, there's a lot to be said for having somebody, just one person underneath you.
Hey, I love janitors. Janitors make the world go around.
Sure.
If we didn't have janitors,
use a janitor around here, let me tell you.
Oh, let's not get into that.
A kid just walked by my office carrying a trash bag. That was perfect. That was right on point.
Nice. But he did that very specifically. He was going there to try to meet. He was doing the Nashville thing.
I realize I said kid, but sorry to interrupt here. Just want to clarify one thing. I'm referencing a 22-year-old. I'm just 35. And so this kid, I do not have children working here at Stringjoy.
Yeah, that's what I'd say. That sounds exactly
like something. I should clarify whether you believe it or not.
There's only 3 9-year-olds. Okay. Everyone else is over 18.
Anyway, you were saying something more germane to the particular topic.
So yes, he's a janitor, but he's not just being a janitor to be a janitor. He is there in the studios knowing that I don't know how to meet Johnny Cash, but I bet if I pick up his trash, I'll probably get to talk to him at some point.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is exactly what he does. So he gets in there and he's literally like, hey, Johnny, I got songs. Now, I should say he's actually, going back a little bit, he actually has written some songs that weren't super popular, but he did have some stuff with Mary John Wilkins Publishing Company. She was like a very big like Christian artist. She worked for a really long time, and a fellow soldier passed her a demo that Kris had recorded. I should mention, all this time, it's not like he just woke up one day and started playing guitar and was like, I'm going to Nashville.
I assume, yeah.
He'd been writing and recording and doing things on the side for a very long time. Some of his biggest songs we'll get to later, he recorded he wrote while he was in the military.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, going through that kind of extreme situation would be a good time to get out a lot of musical ideas. You'd probably, best songs come from those moments.
I think the way I told that story made it sound like he was like, and music now. Well, music was there the whole time.
Yeah.
So
much as how, Jimi Hendrix distilled the difficulties of fighting in Vietnam so beautifully into Foxy Lady.
Yeah, exactly. Of course. Is that what that's about?
No. Okay,
I didn't think so.
Foxy Lady, it's much deeper than you would expect. Actually, if you really, really dig in, there's a lot going on there.
It's about a foxy lady.
Yeah, well, on the surface, what he's actually doing is making an allegory to Beowulf, but set in the Vietnam War.
Okay, and that's why at the midpoint during the song, the foxy lady tears that monster's arm off.
That's right.
Okay, this all makes sense now. And that is why we are not Rhodes Scholars.
Yet.
This is important. So not only is he a janitor, and he's literally like, hey, Johnny, you want a song? Hey, Johnny, I got a song for you. And it's mostly Johnny Cash is what you hear about during this time period. But Johnny Cash was also one of the biggest names on the planet in the music world. So I imagine there was some other pitches happening with other people too. Kris paints Johnny as he was always polite, but like, okay, not right now. All right, buddy. We'll get to it, which is interesting. There's a little foreshadowing for people who probably already know this. They ended up being in a band together. So
that they did. And at this point, Kris is still like the janitor.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it can be awkward when you have people asking like things of you where you're like, I don't want to be rude to the janitor, both because that would be impolite and this person is working very hard, but also because I don't want to get into the janitor's bad graces.
Of course, that could end badly.
Yeah, this guy has an endless supply of dead rodents, and he knows where my trash can is.
Exactly.
So I get where you're like, oh yeah, thank you so much. Well, we'll talk.
Mm-hmm. So this is in 1965. He's also doing something else that is rather important here. So he would work in Nashville, and then he would go to Louisiana, where he would fly helicopters for an oil company. So he would fly
like offshore.
Yep, exactly. He would fly to these oil platforms, bring him supplies and people and all that stuff. Obviously, he did a lot of that in the military, so he could easily step right into that. And he did that, of course, because he was doing the janitor thing, not to be a janitor.
Right.
It was to be in the music world, and he was just trying to get his foot in the door. And so he would do things like this to actually pay the bills.
Why didn't he fly Johnny Cash's helicopter?
I think that's a little harder gig to get. I think they're always looking for helicopter
and they all had
pilots.
Planes. I don't know if anyone had helicopters in the music industry. They all had planes that took off from in my house in Nashville. I'm in East Nashville and kind of buried way back by a big park. But we have this large air park that I've maybe mentioned on the show before. That is the old Cornelia Fort Airport, and it's where Johnny Cash's private jet, I don't know if it was a private jet, but like the little planes he would fly, and all that sort of stuff would take off and land. It's where Patsy Cline was supposed to land when she went down. One day I'm going to do an episode about that in particular. But that's neither here nor there for now.
Yeah, it would be. This is probably not the best time to bring it up, but since we're kind of on this topic of conversation, an acquaintance of mine and somebody, excuse me, who's rather important to my podcasting career actually passed away yesterday in a plane crash. So,
oh gosh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, Dave Shapiro was the guy's name. He ran Sound Talent Group and Sound Talent Media, and he was a really great guy. He helped a lot of bands. if you Google this guy, you're not going to find anybody saying anything but nice things about him.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a very busy guy. He took the time multiple times to listen to some of my crazy ideas about podcasting in the music industry, and got me access to some things that genuinely changed my career to something a lot more sustainable that I otherwise probably wouldn't have gotten access to. So he was a really good guy, and he unfortunately, he died in a plane crash yesterday in San Diego.
Wow.
So the whole kind of rock and metal world that he touched is still reeling from that, because everybody loved that guy. So
I'm sorry to hear that, buddy. That's awful. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. I'm like, I can't very well let this pass, but I did want to, because I did want to publicly shout out Dave at some point, because he was a really good guy and more of a behind the scenes character, but very important to a lot of the rock and metal world. So
yeah,
shout out Dave Shapiro and Sound Talent. So sorry to make it a big downer here, but it's on my mind, and I guess this is as good a time as any.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that, man.
Yeah. But segueing, Kris did not have as much flight issues as Patsy Cline. So he was able to
the number one killer of musicians, like back in the day, seemingly was like planes.
Yeah. The day the music died, the whole thing.
Yeah. I saw a graph once that was deaths of musicians by genre and cause.
Okay.
And I'll have to find it at some point because it was interesting. But it was like old rock and roll, like airplanes. It was like hip hop, guns, and then it was like blues, diabetes.
Oh,
which made me sad.
Oh man. Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. But anyway, so Kris didn't die in a plane crash
or diabetes, I don't think. So, in fact, like we said, he lived a good long life, which is great. That's what we all want. But while he was flying out to these oil rigs, he actually wrote Help Me Make It Through the Night and Me and Bobby McGee on an oil rig.
Wow.
So, Me and Bobby McGee famously cut by Janis Joplin.
Yep.
It's a banger. Yeah. You can just picture Kris sitting up there on the deck of an oil rig, just writing that tune.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So when he would go back to Nashville, he would go to the infamous, or maybe rather just famous, Tootsie's Orchid Lounge. His whole thing was
quite infamous. Maybe now.
Maybe now it's more infamous than. Yeah.
Now the Bachelorettes have taken hold.
Yes, it's become a dangerous place. Mm-hmm. But Tootsie's is one of the legit, like, legendary spots down there. A lot of them have been taken over by them that shall not be named.
Oh yeah, we've got the Jason Aldean's rooftop sushi bar. We got all sorts of things. FGL House closed. Florida Georgia Line.
Thank goodness.
Out with the old, in with the new.
Did I say that out loud? Whoops.
It's an increasingly short, like, lifespan for these bars, just based on who's very relevant at the moment. But Tootsie's is still there. Robert's, my favorite, is still there. Layla's is still there. The stage, like that right in that little section of Lower Broadway is kind of like the last little preserved chunk of it. And then as you keep going, you're gonna end up in Dewey Cox's, 5-story lasagna palace.
I wish it was Dewey Cox's. That'd be amazing. But also famously, we're Nashville people. Well, I'm like a Nashville by proxy person, but you're a real Nashville person. We reference Tootsie's pretty heavily on this podcast because this backs up to the Ryman. This is like part of what we called the Ghost Alley in the Hank Williams episode. So this is all this area.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I thought you were talking about the Tootsies in the airport. There remains a Tootsies in Terminal B of Nashville. So never mind. Disregard everything I said.
Yeah. You said Lower Broadway though.
So, oh shoot.
Yeah. Anyway,
I was caught red-handed.
Yeah. But Tootsie's is relevant because, like we talked about in the Hank episode, if you didn't catch that one, go check it out. But when people would play the Ryman, they would sneak back out to Tootsie's because the doors like face each other almost, and slide in the back door, come get a drink, and then beeline it back over to the Ryman for their show. And everybody was there. Everybody. So he's there trying to rub elbows with people. I mean, he's not dumb. You know, we know this guy's very intelligent. He's there networking, basically. And so he's rubbing elbows with like Willie Nelson, Mickey Newbury, and just like building friendships with the bartenders and the staff, and always just trying to be a cool guy in the scene. Not like a cool guy like, oh, he's too cool for school, but just like a good hang so that people will remember him, so that he can get his foot in the door. This is still what he wants. So, and keep in mind, he's been doing this for a little while. This is 3 years. So he's almost 32, and he's still like emptying ashtrays and trying to get Johnny Cash to cut his records. So it's not, you know, it's not going great yet. So Kris
he's doing the right stuff. I mean, they always say Nashville's a 5-year town, or some say it's a 10-year town. But it takes time here.
Yes.
And you just got to kind of be milling about. I've been here for 16 years now or something. And I in a lot of ways still feel like an outsider. So it's a whole mission in and of itself, but he's doing the right thing at this point. We always talk about like the most important skill in becoming a working musician is being a good hang. Yes, it is. More than anything.
Listen to just about any episode of my other show and with a successful musician, and they will tell you that.
Yep.
That's what it is. But that's not enough for Kris. Kris is like, all right, come on. I got to take matters into my own hands. This is my favorite story, like one of my very favorite stories ever, and it's real. But there's a couple different versions of it depending on who you listen to. But the main crux of the story is this. Kris borrowed, some say stole, some say acquired. I don't really know how. I imagine with his connections, he probably got it more legitimately. But let's give Johnny Cash's telling of the story, and then we'll give Kris's telling of the story.
Cool.
So Kris, I'm sorry, this is too good. I'm just picturing this in my head. Johnny tells it as he's in his house, and all of a sudden he hears because a helicopter is landing in his yard.
And who could that be?
And that is Kris Kristofferson landing a helicopter in his yard. June Carter reportedly came out and yelled, "Sweet Jesus, they came up the road and now they're coming to us out of the sky."
What's Kris's telling of the story?
There's a little more. So this is the main part.
Oh, we're just getting started. Excuse me.
Yeah, well, this is the most important part, but there's a little more to it. So Johnny tells it as Kris comes out of the helicopter with a tape of his recordings and a beer in his hand, and it's like, "All right, Johnny, here you go." So Kris's telling of it is indeed he did fly a helicopter and land in Johnny Cash's yard, so that part is true. Like, we got that covered from multiple angles. But he's like, I couldn't have flown with a beer in my hand.
You need all your hands for those levers. Yeah. But I was going to ask about this. So if you were flying some sort of device while drinking, who would get you in trouble for? Is it the FAA would have to show up? Can a cop issue you like a DUI for operating a helicopter? Obviously, they're not going to find you in the sky. Is it by the time you land? Who does it?
I would think it would be an FAA thing.
Yeah, but they're not standing around Johnny Cash's front yard waiting to have you blow into a thingy.
One thing I do know is this, and I'm not an experienced pilot. I don't know that much about that world, but I've been around enough like private, very small aircraft people and looked into their airplanes. Not that anybody I know was drinking. I'm just saying you super could.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
no one's paying attention to what you're doing.
No one would have any idea if you were or not. So maybe if when you land, maybe there's some sort of inspections that happen at official airports. But
yeah, I think if you're a commercial pilot, this is going to get caught. You got a buddy in there, and then you got to land, go through. But yeah, if you're just operating your own thing, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure, and I'm not sure how one even goes about acquiring a helicopter. Obviously, Kris knew exactly how to do it. But he says here, he's like, so Johnny tells it as if it's a cooler version that Johnny tells. Mm-hmm. Kris says, I couldn't have flown with a beer in hand. And he quote says, it was still kind of an invasion of privacy that I wouldn't recommend. To be honest, I don't think he was there. He's like, Johnny had a pretty creative memory. But regardless, this got Johnny's attention, whether he was there or not. Like, who knows? But Kris definitely landed a helicopter in his yard.
I'm curious which of the Johnny Cash homes this was. Because his like eventual property out in Hendersonville or Old Hickory, I can't remember, went up for sale a couple years ago. And it was only like, it was like $3 million, which is a lot of money. But like, it's like 3 houses on this huge property and they're all stone homes and it's Johnny Cash's like family home. So like, doesn't seem that high considering you can get a lot of McMansions for the same amount of money. Anyway,
what I've noticed is when you start looking at high end property, it's kind of weird. Like if you're looking at stuff that more normal people can afford, the gaps between like what a cheap house and a more pricey house, there's a lot of room for improvement there. Let's put it that way. Once you get over like that 1 million, it's like diminishing returns for what you're spending.
Because above a certain level, everyone would just rather build their own dream custom home. And then those custom homes never sell for much of like what they cost to build because it always has all your weird, hobbies and crap built into it. And the next guy is like, I don't want that.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid, I had a friend who his family were home builders. So they like naturally built their own like kind of wild monstrosity out in the suburbs of Indianapolis. And they had a 3-story aquarium with this big cylindrical, maybe, I can't remember, like 12, 15 foot wide aquarium that ran the full, height of the house. And they had a shark in there and all this other stuff. And they'd have to have somebody like a diver come in to like scrub the inside of the aquarium.
With a shark in it?
With a shark in it. Yeah. I mean, not like a man-eating shark because, it's not a ton of room. You've seen the SeaWorld documentary.
This is true. Yes, I have.
But it's like, as cool as that is for them, to the next person that's going to buy that home, they likely don't want a 3-foot aquarium. So either they're looking at like, okay, we're going to keep it, but it has this enormous amount of maintenance that we're going to have to bake into this. Or they're like, what's the cost to remove a 3-story aquarium that runs in the middle of the home and then add new flooring and all that stuff. So these things become like negative value very quickly.
Oh yeah, that is a perfect example because my wife and I talk about this all the time. There's this enormous home. I don't even know how many square feet it is that we pass by occasionally because it's on the way out to my parents' house who do not have an enormous home. But it's so huge. It's gotta be maybe if I'm just spitballing here. I'm not even counting the multiple stories. It's probably 30,000 square feet. It's huge. Whoa. It's huge. And we're like, and this is one of those like town rumors you don't really know. You just hear around town, and they're like, oh yeah, that's the guy that owns Aaron's furniture rental company. And I'm like, furniture rental? I didn't know there was that kind of money in furniture rental, but all right. That's not really the point of the story. The point is my wife and I are always like, even if we had that kind of money, that is absolutely not
what you build.
No way.
And that's the thing. And I can also tell you, because I was the scholarship kid at a very nice school. So I like knew a lot of people. And so I've been into a number of these types of homes. And I can tell you that 100% of the time, the interior like things like the wallpaper or the paint or the carpet or like all that stuff are really weird. Not one single time are they like a sort of standard, we built the home, so we're going to go with the natural color thing. 0% of the time. Like the one that comes to mind, it was really cool, but all the walls and ceilings were black. The carpet was all this like black, like velvet carpet and stuff. And it had all like, brass fixtures and stuff. It was really dope actually. But like to the next person, you're like, I have to, if that's not your style, which it probably isn't, you have to take out all that stuff across 30,000 square feet. And it adds a huge amount of cost. So the rich people homes are always really like overly customized to a point that, yeah, it has this effect, what you're talking about. Like I remember one particular home, and I swear we'll get back to it. This family, I won't name them, but they ran a big company that in the post Enron days had kind of a similar situation that happened. And they had built this massive place in Indianapolis, and it had a like replica of Assembly Hall, the IU basketball stadium. in it so the kids could play basketball.
Okay.
And I remember hearing, I don't know if this was like a rumor or not, but like the landscaping costs were like $200,000 a year. Just because it's this huge place. And I don't know how many tens of millions of dollars it cost to build, but tens of millions of dollars. And it ended up, when it sold at auction and it sold for like $4 or $5 million.
Yeah.
Which is a lot of money, but like a tenth of what it like cost to build for all of these reasons.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting thing when you get beyond the scope of what normal people do. Basically, It's like, what? Okay. And for that, I mean, in that sense, Johnny Cash's home, not that crazy.
No, not nearly. Not nearly.
Yeah.
So Chris, one way or another, lands a helicopter in Johnny Cash's home. And yeah, stories maybe vary. But what happens next?
So can you guess what came out of that? I bet you can. Johnny Cash.
Johnny listened to the tape.
Johnny listened to the tape. He records Sunday Morning Coming Down. That's it. The rest is history from there. From that point, Chris is set. Like that's, even if that's all that ever happened, that would have been good enough. Which, what a song. Yeah. I love that song. I love both Johnny and Chris's version of it. That's one of my very favorite Johnny Cash tunes via Kris Kristofferson, obviously. I just think it's, and I presume
the recorded Chris version, he recorded it like later. Like Johnny Cash probably took the raw song and recorded it first, and then Chris did his own version later. Or did he have, a recording that was later released?
I don't actually know the order. I had to guess what Chris delivered was a demo tape, because it doesn't sound like he had a lot of money.
Doesn't sound at this point like he's got a studio record or anything.
Yeah, I don't think so. I could be wrong about that. Maybe he, took all of his savings from flying the helicopters and recorded something, but I kind of doubt it. I'm guessing he did a demo tape, and then Kris Kristofferson's version came out later. We could probably look this up.
We take it for granted now, but like this is a time in which if you wanted to record your music, you needed some sort of monetary backing one way or another. You didn't have like an interface in your basement. Yeah,
you didn't come up with a Focusrite Scarlett and a decent mic and like get a semi-solid recording basically anywhere. That was not an option then. So that comes out, and that's 1970. And in 1970 alone, I mean, can you imagine going from janitor to this? In 1970, he gets...
So this is like right around, like Me and Bobby McGee gets cut.
Me and Bobby McGee
imminently, right?
Help Me Make It Through the Night and For the Good Times all went to number one in 1970.
Because Janice didn't live very long after that.
Yeah, it hit, actually her version hit after her death.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's probably one of the later things she recorded.
Yep, exactly. And Chris was like devastated, but obviously pretty honored as well. That's a fantastic song as well. Chris is very good.
I keep being surprised in this podcast at the amount of like famous songs from musicians that were posthumous releases.
I know.
Because we were talking about with Sam Cooke as well.
Yeah.
It's wild.
I think that probably happens less these days. Cause I think people are turning and burning things more quickly. Yeah,
that's I'm trying to think of an example. I mean, there's always like when Prince died, like as far as I know, I don't know if the stuff from Prince's vault has come out or not. There's always stuff like some old demo tapes and stuff, but a lot of these are like, they were ready to release it. It was going to be a single, and then she passed away.
Yeah. I think there was a lot more, especially with a major artist back then. I think there was a lot more, okay, we're building up. We've got the plan. We're going to like launch it. And that still happens. Don't get me wrong. But there's just so many artists now, and the budgets are so much smaller, relatively speaking. And it's just it's a different industry. And you put it out through your, if you're an indie artist, you put it out through DistroKid and it goes everywhere. And then it's like, okay, on to the next thing in some form or fashion.
And you wonder too, with like Me and Bobby McGee, like, when an artist like that passes away and then there's a new single coming out, that's like, that single's going to go so much further than it might have otherwise, because there's so much attention on it. And, everyone's like hearing this voice, from the beyond almost. And so you wonder if some of these songs would have had quite the same legendary status or treatment. And it's odd. I mean, at least with like Sam Cooke and with Janice, like I think they both deserve it, but you have to, assume that like it's going to get more billing than it would have otherwise.
There's something about it too, and I don't know what it is. We talked about this a little bit on the In Utero episode, but there, I hate to say it, but there is just some sort of maybe morbid fascination that humans have when these things happen. It's just,
Yeah.
I don't know why, but we all do it. Our attention is all of a sudden heightened when you hear like, oh, this person died. This artist died. And then you're like, well, maybe I should go listen to their music. Whereas if they had just released it, you'd be like, I'll get to it eventually.
Yep, exactly.
It's kind of weird. We've all done it at some point, especially with the music being in our pocket. I can admit to like, there's been artists that have passed recently that I've been like, I haven't listened to their music in a while. I'm going to go listen to it now.
Yep. Yeah, I'm sure there's a spike.
Yeah, which is kind of dumb. You should appreciate them while they're here, but something's wrong.
But it also makes sense. Like it's the natural sense of grieving and stuff that people would want to remember somebody.
That's true.
While grieving something, and so you go back to what they've done. So it's not bad, but it is a thing.
Yeah, it's definitely a thing. There's definitely more attention put on it. It's just, I think, a natural human tendency, unfortunately. I mean, I say unfortunately, but it's not that bad. Like you said, it's not bad. It's just kind of weird. But onto things that are also not bad. Bob Dylan, can you imagine this? 1969, you're emptying ashtrays and flying helicopters.
Right, and then in 1970,
boom,
everything's happening.
And then shortly after that, Bob Dylan, of all people, says Kristofferson marked a turning point in country music. His songs were raw, poetic, and unfiltered. Can you imagine hearing Bob Dylan say that about your work?
Man, and it's not that odd. I mean, Bob had a lot of affinity for certain types of country music.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I'm just
always
picturing
Johnny, of course.
I'm just picturing kind of being a nobody in Nashville, quote unquote, to huge, and then like Bob Dylan said, "What about me?" Like that would be a trip. I think it would be weird. And I think Kris was the type of person that, from what I can tell and how he seemed to behave, I mean, and from what other people's reports, I don't think he ever let this go to his head. I think he kept things pretty, like, he knew where he stood. And
he seems a very humble dude, despite having like every reason not to be.
Yeah. I'm a boxer. I'm an Army Ranger. I'm a Rhodes Scholar. I'm one of the best songwriters of all time. He, if he had a big ego, I don't think people would have been like, well, yeah, but you're not. Well, I'm better than you at, never mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you get the sense he's just so confident. There's no need to be anything else.
Exactly. I mean, I've heard people say the way you get over imposter syndrome is by having undeniable proof. And this guy had undeniable proof.
Huh. I've never heard that before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's like, keep working until you have undeniable proof. Like, well, Kris certainly did that for sure.
Huh. I like that.
So in 1973, again, not that long. It's in 69, he's emptying ashtrays. By 73, he's got his own album, The Silver-Tongued Devil, and I. And Why Me becomes a number one. So
that's boom. His first, on his own.
On his own. Yeah, exactly.
Wow. And this is like, there's a lot of sort of famous songwriters like Tom Waits and Bob Dylan come to mind that and I love both of those people, but like unquestionably, like you can hear other stuff and get like a great vocal performance, and then you hear their stuff and you're like, this is a different treatment, I guess. But right. Kris has got a great voice as well.
Oh yeah, he does. It's his own thing, and it's very unique. Some people actually prefer his versions of his own songs to the more famous ones. A lot of people prefer Kris's version of Sunday Morning Coming Down to Johnny's. Yep. I don't know that I fall into that camp necessarily, but they're pretty close for me. One day I might prefer another one, and a different day I'll prefer the other one. I really love both versions. But that's not it for Kris. No. He's got to make all of us feel even more inferior. He's not done with his success yet. No, he's just going to go ahead and I'm kind of oversimplifying this, but not entirely. He waltzes into Hollywood.
Yep. Like, why not become a movie star now?
Yeah. I've done all this other stuff.
I don't feel that I'm appreciated enough for my good looks in addition to my talent.
Exactly. So he appeared in Cisco Pike, Pat Garrett, and Billy the Kid, which is one I remember more than the other ones. And Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, which I had to look up. I wasn't familiar with that one.
And the big one, of course, which is years later. Maybe you're getting to it.
Well, yeah. So there's more. We're getting to these places. We got Convoy, which was big for him. There was a flop.
I forgot he was in. I forgot about Convoy. That's the one about the truckers, right?
Yep, Convoy.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Been a long time.
He's in that. So
I think when I saw that on TV, I don't think I knew who Kris Kristofferson was.
I don't think I did either the first time, but when it came back around on the internet for me later, I was like, oh yeah, Kris Kristofferson's in this. Look at that. But the big one, and I think you're getting to this, is 1976's A Star Is Born with Barbra Streisand.
With Babs herself, yeah.
Mm-hmm. He got a Golden Globe for Best Actor.
To all of our teen female audience out there, A Star Is Born is in fact a remake. The Lady Gaga and what's his name?
Bradley Cooper.
Thank you. I was going to say Paul Walker. No, it wasn't Paul Walker.
No, rest in peace. I think he was gone by the time that that film was made.
Yeah. But that was in fact a remake of a very, very famous 1970s film that my dear co-host Blake will tell you about.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to really get into the tale of A Star Is Born, but it is an enormous film. It's an enormous success. It's very well regarded critically and with the audiences. And again, he won a Golden Globe for Best Actor. So yeah, let's just add that to the pile of accolades.
Yeah, why not, man? What can't he do?
This man,
I feel like this guy now in modern times would 100% run for president after all this.
He kind of has to, right? And honestly, if Kris was going to run for president, okay, that's a celebrity I can get behind. Let's go.
Sure.
Yeah. You've got the credibility, sir. You're not just a reality TV star. That's good stuff. But let's not forget probably his most famous project, musically speaking, I would say. The Highwaymen, 1985. So this is quite a bit after A Star Is Born. And he's doing some other things. He's in a flop called Heaven's Gate, which I'd never heard of, but now I kind of want to watch.
This would have been prior to Heaven's Gate, the suicide cult.
Yes, not in the 90s. No. In the 90s, he was doing things like Blade, starring in Blade, which I do love. Yeah.
Kris Kristofferson was in a little thing called Heaven's Gate. You're like, really?
I didn't know he was a Nike fan. Yeah, which I don't think we'll ever get into that. Would have needed a
long shroud. He strikes me as a tall man.
Yeah, I think he's a big guy. Yeah, I don't think he would have liked their dietary preference. He would have punched Marshall Applewhite right in the throat. What are we talking
big
about?
Time. Yeah.
Just right in the throat. For those of you, we do a lot. Scott and I, unfortunately, have a lot of the same dark humor, and so we refer to these things a lot. You may not know Heaven's Gate was a death cult in the 90s, and if you want to know more about that, you can look it up. It's very, very weird.
Enjoy the deep dive that you can take into this. We're both somewhat into cults.
Yeah, it's very, very unfortunate, but very, very weird. Anyway, there's another thing, and maybe this is part of why there's kind of a gap here. He declined a lot of projects as well. He liked to work on things that he wanted to work on. You know, he didn't just take projects to take projects at this point, which is
like Blade.
Blade rules. I love that movie. Okay. I'll
have to go back to it. I'm not the biggest Blade fan.
Oh, come on, man. Got to get on Blade. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. Because we got to talk about the Highwaymen.
Yes, that's right.
Yes. In 1985. So keep in mind, he goes from needing to, he's literally emptying Johnny Cash's ashtrays. He's literally sweeping his floors to landing a helicopter in his yard. And now he's in a band with him.
That's pretty cool.
Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash, and Kris Kristofferson. What a cool group to be a part of.
Oh, absolutely. Now, for the listeners out there, I think this is interesting. I don't know which one came first because you told me that we were going to talk about this and then I forgot. But this is a thing that happened a bit in the 80s because you also around the same time have the Traveling Wilburys cropping up. Which
is that the same time? I thought that was later.
I think it was late 80s, maybe early 90s.
I thought it was a 90s thing, but yeah.
Zooming out a little bit, you have kind of the similar thing of like people who are not famous or anything, but they're not exactly in their commercial primes. for a lot of these artists. And so they're kind of coming together. You know, this is like the hair metal era.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, well, together we can breathe some new life into all this, which is a clever thing to do.
So you got to be careful with this, Scott.
What?
So there's a very amazing clip of a reporter, not as eloquently stating that to the Highwaymen themselves.
Oh, I wouldn't say that to him.
He says this, so he's like, "Are you guys all doing this because you guys can't fill a room on your own anymore?" Basically, and Waylon Jennings. You know my love for Waylon.
Walks up
so deep,
punches him in the throat.
He says, "You say anything like that again, I'll burn your house." So good. Those are the words he used. He doesn't say, "I'll burn down your house." He just says, "You say that again, I'll burn your house."
I'll burn your house.
Oh,
perfect.
Man. So good. It's a great clip. You should look it up. It's very satisfying. It's very good.
I will. I'm glad that I'm not the person on the other end of that.
Yeah, because then you're just like, well, that's the end of the interview.
But I don't think that the reporter is that wrong, or at least not completely.
I don't think so.
This happens.
It happens. And it also goes in waves, because I think, you get through that period, you get to, the mid 90s when country's at arguably its peak. Well, though, then right now it's going through another peak. But you think that none of those guys could like fill a stadium in the 90s? They probably could. I mean,
that's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
Because
at least a large theater.
Yeah, they could do well. Because a lot of that 90s country peak is like having a demographic change. It's younger people, it's women coming in and liking Garth and Shania.
This is true.
First and foremost, with Trisha.
But then there's like the George Straits and Alan Jacksons, though, that are kind of throwing it back a little bit. So
it's very true.
Yeah. I don't know. I definitely think they would do better on their own in the 90s than they did during the hair metal era.
I think so too. Yeah. And I don't mean they were nothing, but like it definitely helps to have a couple different stars on the draw. I mean, bands do this touring all the time.
Well, we're talking about it for a reason, right? It was a big deal. The fact that these four were together, it's just like
not as many people were showing up to the Michael Anthony tour as the Chicken Foot tour.
That's right. It's true. It's
sorry.
True. So we kind of move forward a little bit in time here, getting into the 90s a little bit. One of the things that this is just like, just makes me like, kind of hurts me inside that it was happening, but also I love his response to it. So he's just like very outspoken against like war, inequality. He's a big supporter of Native American rights and all this stuff. And I really like those things about him. But like one of the things I think really shows where Chris's heart lies is Bob Dylan's 30th anniversary concert. Sinead O'Connor's performing, and this is after she has the SNL controversy.
Yep.
And the crowd's like getting down on her bad. Like it's not good. It's really not. And he like kind of stands with her and like gives her this encouragement that she needed to perform, and just like really like kind of held her and just helped her through this moment in a way that I think really shows like the type of dude he is.
Remind me, did Sinead, was it that she burned a picture of the Pope?
I think she ripped it up.
She ripped it up? Okay. That probably makes more sense.
And she was doing
that would have been JP2, John Paul II, back then.
I think so. And the thing is she, in my brain, she became very vindicated later because she was doing this, talking about all the horrible like abuses that were occurring in the Catholic Church. It was one of the first like very public criticisms of that happening. And now it's almost become a common punchline amongst comedians. Whereas at the time it was viewed as like this anti-Catholic thing. And I don't think it was. I think it was like, hey, look what they're doing over here. Right. Yeah.
This is the time of the Troubles. So it was treated this way. So thank you all for tuning in for another episode of Two Irish People Defend Other Irish People.
I kind of understand if that is truly where she was coming from with it. I get it. Right. If it's a broader anti-Catholic thing, that's kind of messed up. But I think it really was to bring attention to there's some abuse going on over here, and it's being covered up, and we all know about it now.
Yep.
So, yeah. But the fact that Kris
I could talk at length about all this, and maybe we will.
I think
jot this down for a future episode.
That's its own episode, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But this is kind of interesting too. So I forgot to mention this whole time. I mean, you can imagine the guy who wrote Sunday Morning Coming Down has experienced a Sunday morning or two like that in his day. And if you have never heard that song, I recommend you immediately go listen to it after this podcast is over, because it is an amazing song. But in '83, he quit drinking. So he'd probably been. That's one thing. If you got to quit drinking, that usually means you're drinking too much. Like,
probably.
Yeah. If you got a full blown quit, like most people who full blown quit, and don't mean to generalize. I'm sure there are others that this applies to differently, but if you have to full blown quit and kind of tell everybody about it, it's probably because you're drinking a little too much.
Yeah. These days I see some of the other side of things. People will be like, "Oh, I quit drinking." I'm like, "Oh boy," and they're like, "Yeah, I was having like 2 drinks a week." I'm like, "Okay," but back then,
yes,
agreed.
Yeah, little different thing. And then so that was something I wanted to note. I should have did that earlier, probably just before the Highwaymen thing. But he ended up marrying Lisa Myers, and they raised 5 kids together. So on top of it, Dad, look at all this. Like, your dad's an Army Ranger, Rhodes Scholar, professional boxer, Golden Globe winning actor, and has multiple #1 hits under his belt. It's like, my dad is cooler than your dad.
That's a big shadow to try to live under. That would be hard.
Yeah. And there's another thing I forgot to mention too, that I'm this is going way back, but it's kind of worth mentioning in the context of all that. With all of that going on, I forgot to say, when he decided to pursue music, his family basically disowned him.
Wow.
Yeah. He didn't talk to his family for like 20 years.
Wow. So
that was something I should have said earlier in the conversation. I kind of glossed over that, and I was too excited to tell the helicopter story, if I'm being real. The helicopter story is too good. But he didn't talk to his family for 20 years, and I have to imagine when they finally did reconcile, you really got to eat your hat on that one.
I wonder, I feel like this is kind of it comes up as a trope, where it's just a misalignment of values, where it's like, oh, I'm this huge famous star now, don't you see it was worth it, Dad? And they're like, I didn't see, ever see no value in people singing for their supper no matter what. That was my impression of a hypothetical father displeased with the undeniable success of his son or daughter. But I feel like that happens, where they go back and you expect it to be this obvious thing. But they don't really care all that much, which I could really tie back to the movie Welcome Home, Roscoe Jenkins, which was a very formative movie for me. That really is about this.
I don't know that movie at all. I thought you were going to say
we'll watch it sometime. Yeah, it's not. I am one of few white people, I think, that have seen Welcome Home, Roscoe Jenkins, and I enjoy it quite a bit. It's a lovely movie.
I feel like I've heard of it before, probably from you.
It's Cuba Gooding Jr. and Monique, and like it's this. In short, it's this like very successful like city lawyer that goes back to his family. I think they're in rural Georgia or something. And he's very successful, but they all just regard him as kind of highfalutin. And while he might be good at lawyering in the city, he isn't no good at the things that they value, which is generally like country stuff.
I see. I was going to say, well, as much as I said, like, oh, you're going to have to eat your hat in that situation. They weren't all that impressed with his achievements before music, seemingly. Enough, well, to cut him off, right? You're going to cut. He's already done all these really impressive things before music. And then
you'd think it'd be like, well, thank you. You did the family thing. You serve your country. And now you're free to do what you want. But no.
Yeah, no, we're not going to talk to you for 20 years. So I guess maybe that wasn't the case. I don't know. They did end up speaking again. I'm not sure how close they got. I'm not like, I didn't get into all those details necessarily, but they did end up speaking again at some point.
Let me also just say to anyone out there. So like, I'm very fortunate in that, like, I think my parents were always going to be proud of me. Like I've been successful, but I think it's not about that. And I have a lot of friends that like don't necessarily feel that way or feel like their parents aren't that proud of them. And they kind of internalize that as like, I haven't done enough to make my parents proud. And let this be a lesson to you, because this dude, holy cow. I mean, did like everything that you could ever possibly do, is like a modern Renaissance man, and still had like some level of daddy issues, you know, of like that their parents weren't that impressed. So if you find I have a lot of friends in this boat. If you find yourself feeling that way, it's probably not your fault.
Oh, that is a very worth saying. Yeah, that is a very, very good example. And another person in this story that we've talked about a lot, Johnny Cash, had the same problem.
Yep.
He was on top of the world and his dad's still like, bleh.
Yep. It's not about you. It's about them.
Exactly. So don't do anything to impress other people. Mm-hmm. It's not worth it. Just do things that you are good at, want to do. And as long as you're not hurting anybody, it's fine. Agreed. That's how I feel about it. So wrapping up a little bit here, it's just like undeniable. Kristofferson, he changed songwriting. He brought a lot more honesty and like kind of everyman stuff into what was becoming a very, very like poppy, polished thing at the time. You know, you could definitely view him as part of the outlaw movement. Steve Earle, John Prine, Sturgill Simpson all cite him as a major influence.
Yep.
He got a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. I mean, he's the man. You know?
Legendary dude. I remember when he passed, I read the New York Times obituary of him. It had a lot of photos and things. And I was just like struck by it. I was like, what a babe.
Yeah.
This guy is very good looking in the 60s and 70s.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, good on you, dude.
Uh-huh.
Hats off. Yeah, what a legendary dude. This has been awesome to hear. Thank you all out there for listening to another episode of Blake Portland Splains Nashville to Scott.
Yeah, ironically,
it's funny. I did a Pacific Northwest episode last week. So no, it's cool. I think that's kind of a funny thing of you and I is you do know more about a lot of the Nashville stuff than I do. Like I know some because I'm here, but like it's funny to me.
I grew up and still am a country music fan. And so it's just in my DNA to be interested in these things. And then it doesn't help that my wife, I've told this story on my show and a bunch of other places. My wife has gotten so into country music in the last like 6 years. She's always liked it, just like I have. But it's basically all she listens to. And she's the one who feeds me new artists. And so she's feeding me like the Charles Wesley Godwins. And, you know, she's the one who showed me Sturgill Simpson for the first time.
Whoa.
Yeah. So like I get a lot of my modern good stuff from her, and she's so into it that then I kind of find myself going back to some of these older people that I grew up with and going through their stories. And I love Nashville. It's not only my home away from home, but it's also like, it's just somewhere I've been going there since I was like 11. It's very much a special place for me. So sorry if I Portland-splained Nashville.
No, I love it. It's not a knock. I absolutely love it. I am very grateful for it. It makes me more appreciative of my city in a lot of ways. So with that, you want to read us out, buddy?
Yeah, I just got next time. Maybe you could do, I don't know. Yeah, like an episode on the Melvins or something. And
that sounds good.
Yeah.
There's this place called Portland.
Yeah. What? Well, people, I hope you enjoyed that episode. Thank you so much for hanging out. And please, we need more reviews. They were coming in hot and heavy, and they kind of stalled out because I understand you got things to do, but hit us with those reviews on whatever platform you're listening to this on. Share it with your friends, all that good stuff. That helps keep this thing going. It helps new people find it. Drop us a comment on the YouTubes or the Spotify, whatever, all this stuff. Anything helps a lot. It really, really does. And I think Scott and I both are kind of astonished at how the reason I'm asking for reviews is I get about 3 messages a week telling me how much they love the show. So if you could, I appreciate that very much. I don't want that to stop, but if you could tell others how much you love the show. That would go a lot further. So please drop those in the whatever platform you're on. Appreciate it. Is that it? Should we call it good?
Yeah, that's perfect.